The birth of a legend. The story of Alexander begins long before his first breath. It begins in the rugged land of Macedon, a kingdom rising from the shadows of the Greek world. The air of Pella, the Macedonian capital, carries the scent of horses and iron, for this is a land forged by warriors. Yet on one remarkable night in 356 BCE, a storm of omens fills the sky. Flames shoot across the heavens. Priests speak of prophecies. And Queen Olympias gives birth to a child who will one day reshape the world. Alexander, his mother, Olympias, is a woman of fierce belief and mystical devotion. She whispers to her son that he is destined for greatness, that the blood of heroes flows through him. His father, King Philip II, is a master of strategy and war, a man who unites the fractured Greek states under the banner of Macedon. From these two forces, Alexander inherits power, ambition, and an unbreakable will. As a child, Alexander listens to stories of Achilles, the greatest warrior of myth. He does not see them as legends. He sees them as guides. The fire of destiny begins to burn inside him. When he is still young, Philip brings him a tutor, a man whose knowledge will fill the future king's mind with ideas that stretch beyond the borders of any empire. His name is Aristotle. Under the trees of Mysa, in quiet gardens where the world seems to pause, Aristotle teaches Alexander the nature of logic, the workings of the natural world, the power of language, the design of governments, and the stories of great heroes and thinkers who came before him. From philosophy to medicine to the ethics of leadership, Alexander absorbs knowledge like a man preparing for a destiny he already senses. By the age of 12, Alexander tames a wild horse named Bucephalus, a beast feared by all others. Philip watches the scene unfold, stunned, and proudly says, "My son, seek a kingdom greater than Macedon, for Macedon is too small for you." The boy believes him. The making of a king. Alexander's youth is marked by constant training. He rides through open fields with the companions, the elite cavalry that will later carry him into battle after battle. He hunts lions, races chariots, breaks spears in the practice fields, and learns how to command men with both authority and trust. He also forms friendships that will define his life. Hephaestion becomes his closest companion, the confidant who understands the heart of the young prince. Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, each of them will march beside Alexander, and each will one day inherit a piece of his empire, yet destiny sharpens itself on tragedy. In 336 BCE, during a celebration, King Philip II is assassinated. The court erupts into chaos. Enemies within Macedon rise, believing a 20-year-old boy is too weak to rule. But they have misjudged him. Alexander acts swiftly. He secures the throne, eliminates threats, and rallies the army. With the same soldiers who followed Philip, he now marches to secure the Greek states as their new leader. He is young, but he carries the presence of a king. The Greek city-states, once rebellious, now recognize Macedon's authority. Some city leaders test him. They do not test him twice. With the Greek world stabilized, Alexander turns his eyes east, toward Persia, the greatest empire the world has ever known. This is the moment he has been preparing for his entire life. The war against Persia begins in 334 BCE. Alexander crosses the Hellespont into Asia, marking the beginning of a campaign that will reshape the ancient world. He visits the traditional site of Troy and pays homage to Achilles. He ties the past to his future, believing himself destined to surpass the hero he idolized. His first major battle comes at the Granicus River. Persian forces stand ready, confident that the young Macedonian will fall quickly. But Alexander leads a direct cavalry assault, spear in hand, riding at the front lines with the fearlessness of a man who believes death cannot touch him. The battle is vicious, but the Macedonians emerge victorious. Word of Alexander spreads across Asia like wildfire. Next comes the Battle of Issus. Here, King Darius III of Persia confronts Alexander personally with an army far larger than the Macedonian forces. When the fighting begins, the world seems to tremble. Alexander leads the companion cavalry into the heart of the Persian line with precision and fury. Darius sees the charge coming and loses his nerve. He flees, abandoning his men and even his family. Alexander treats the captured Persian royal family with dignity, a gesture that earns him admiration across conquered territories. It also marks the difference between a conqueror and a ruler. Alexander intends to be both. City after city falls. The siege of Tyre tests Alexander's patience and determination for months, but he refuses to retreat. He builds a massive causeway across the sea to reach the island city and captures it after a brutal fight. Egypt welcomes him as a liberator. There he is crowned pharaoh, and he establishes the city of Alexandria, a city that will become a beacon of science, culture, and knowledge for thousands of years. Gaugamela and the fall of Persia in 331 BCE, the decisive moment arrives. Alexander meets Darius again, this time at Gaugamela. The Persian army stretches across the horizon, thousands of cavalry, or chariots equipped with blades, infantry from dozens of nations. The world expects Alexander to fall, but Alexander studies the battlefield and formulates a plan of brilliant precision. When the battle begins, the air fills with dust and screams. The clashing of metal echoes like thunder. Alexander leads a wedge formation straight toward Darius. The Persian king breaks and flees once more. This time, his empire collapses with him. Alexander enters Babylon, then Susa, then Persepolis, the heart of Persian wealth and power. The palaces gleam with gold and jewels. Here, in a moment historians still debate, the great palace of Persepolis burns. Some say it was revenge for past Persian invasions. Others believe it was the reckless act of drunken celebration. Whatever the cause, flames consume the symbol of an empire that had stood for centuries. Alexander pursues Darius into the eastern provinces, but he is too late. The Persian king is betrayed and murdered by his own governors. Alexander mourns his fallen rival and declares himself the rightful ruler of Asia, but even with Persia conquered, his ambition continues to grow. The edge of the world, India CMPA Aegean. Alexander pushes farther east than any Greek general before him. He crosses deserts where water is scarce and mountains where even the sky seems to freeze. His men follow, loyal but weary. At the river Hydaspes, he meets King Porus, a ruler known for his towering height, his courage, and his war elephants. The battle that follows is one of the most difficult of Alexander's career. The elephants crash into the Macedonian lines. The rain pours down. Horses panic. Spears shatter. Men fall, but Alexander refuses to retreat. After a long and brutal fight, he wins. He approaches Porus and asks how he wishes to be treated. Porus replies, "As a king." Alexander is impressed and restores Porus to power as an ally, yet the victory comes with a cost. Alexander's army, exhausted and longing for home, refuses to march farther into India. For the first time, Alexander turns back. The final journey. Alexander leads his army south and then west through some of the harshest lands on earth. The Gedrosian desert takes a terrible toll. Countless men die. Supplies run low. But Alexander pushes forward, determined to reach Babylon and reshape his empire. He begins planning new cities, new expeditions, even a naval empire. His vision grows larger than any map can contain, but destiny has brought him to his final chapter. In 323 BCE, in Babylon, Alexander falls ill. Fever grips him. His companions gather around him, Hephaestion gone before him, now Ptolemy, Seleucus, and others waiting for their king to speak. When asked who should inherit his vast empire, Alexander whispers, "To the strongest." The world darkens. Alexander the Great, only 32 years old, is gone. The legacy of Attila and his generals divide the empire. The Hellenistic Age begins. Greek culture spreads across Asia and Africa. Alexandria grows into the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world. Kingdoms bearing the influence of his conquest flourish for centuries. Alexander's legacy is not merely in the lands he conquered. It lives in the spread of Greek philosophy, the blend of cultures across continents, the rise of new dynasties, the evolution of science, art, and literature, and the idea that one person, driven by vision and courage, can alter the course of human history. Alexander sought immortality through deeds. And he achieved. The mind of a conqueror. To understand Alexander's legend, we must look deeper into the man behind the sword. He was not only shaped by kingship or battle. He was shaped by ideas. Alexander believed that destiny was not something handed to a man. It was something a man seized with both hands. His education under Aristotle created a sharp mind that questioned the world and sought to reshape it. He studied how governments rise and fall. He studied how heroes seize opportunity. He studied how cultures thrive or collapse, and he believed deeply that a ruler must win not only with force but with vision. This is why Alexander did not simply conquer. He united. He blended. He transformed. When he entered Persia, he did not destroy its systems. He kept them. He learned from them. He added Greek ideas on top of them. He built an empire made not only of land but of culture. Alexander saw himself as a bridge between worlds: Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, a fusion of philosophies and traditions. This thinking made him far more than a king. It made him a world builder. The Empire. Behind every great leader stands a circle of loyal allies. For Alexander, these were the companions, elite cavalry soldiers, trusted generals, friends who had grown up with him. Hephaestion was the closest a man who matched Alexander's spirit: quiet where Alexander was, fiery calm where he was, restless, a mirror to his soul. When Hephaestion died in Ecbatana, the world watched Alexander break. He fasted for days. He cut his hair as Achilles once did for Patroclus. He ordered great mourning across the empire. It was the one moment when the invincible king revealed the human heart inside him. There were others: Ptolemy, thoughtful and strategic; Seleucus, ambitious and calculating; Craterus, loyal to Macedonian tradition; Antigonus and Lysimachus, tough and relentless. These men marched through deserts and mountains, stood beside Alexander in battles and feasts, and after his death they became the fathers of kingdoms. But during his lifetime they were more than generals. They were the backbone of the greatest military machine ever built. The soldiers who followed him. Alexander's army was not a nameless mass. It was a living force of loyalty and muscle and will. Men who began their journey in Macedonia left fields and families to march into worlds they had never imagined. They were led by the famed Macedonian phalanx, shields locked, spears extended, moving like a single creature of bronze, and determination behind them. The companion cavalry, the blade of Alexander's strategy, fast, precise, deadly. These soldiers, tired and bruised, followed Alexander across tens of thousands of miles, through burned cities, snow-covered mountains, and forests filled with elephants. Many grew weary, many longed for home, but something kept them marching: the belief that Alexander was more than a king, that he was chosen for something greater and they would be part of that greatness. It is impossible to tell Alexander's story without honoring the men who helped carve it into history. The empire after his death. The death of Alexander was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new age, an age of conflict, division, and transformation. When Alexander whispered, "to the strongest," he left the world without a clear heir. His wife Roxana carried his unborn child. His half-brother Aristeus was alive but weak. His generals looked at the vast empire and knew that only power would decide its future. Thus began the Wars of the Successors, a series of struggles that tore the empire apart. Ptolemy took Egypt, Seleucus claimed the eastern regions, Antigonus fought for control of Asia Minor and Greece, Lysimachus ruled in Thrace, Cassander took Macedon and Greece. The empire Alexander built did not stay united, but it did not collapse either. Instead, it became a constellation of powerful kingdoms, each driven by Greek culture, each shaped by his legacy. Greek became the language of scholars. Cities named Alexandria appeared across continents. Trade routes expanded. Knowledge flowed from Greece to Persia to India and back again. Even after his death, Alexander continued to reshape the world. The immortal legacy. Historians still ask one question: what made Alexander truly great? Was it his victories, his empire, his charisma, his relentless ambition, or his ability to inspire loyalty? The truth is that greatness does not come from one source, it rises from the meeting of many forces. Alexander was a student of Aristotle, a warrior like Achilles, a king like Philip, a visionary who believed that the world could be won. He marched farther than any Greek before him. He crossed lands where no map guided him. He faced armies larger than his own. He defeated kings older and far more experienced. But beyond the battles, Alexander's greatest legacy was the